Last week we were racing around Fuji Speedway, but this week we head across the Pacific to California to race around the streets of Long Beach. It's the World GT Championship here on RaceSpotTV, brought to you by 3M UK. My name is Paul Smith. Alongside me in the commentary box this week is Will Chadwick, because Peter Mackay, well, he's been enjoying his honeymoon. He's headed back to the UK, but Will, pleasure to have you here and pleasure to have you for your first World GT broadcast.
Yeah, I absolutely can't wait. It's a series that's been going such a long time. You know, obviously in the iconic GT3 car has been a very, very popular class on iRacing for so many years. Done a few World Touring Car gigs recently, and yeah, excited for my first World GT one.
Well, we've got two feature races for you here today. Two 40-minute races with mandated pit stops in both of them, and we have the return of the spinning wheel to decide who is going to be on pole position in race number 2. Let's have a look at the calendar and see where we have been so far. We started off at Barcelona with an endurance round before we went through Imola and Monza. Then we headed across to the North America stage of the series at Road Atlanta, Road America and Daytona. Last week, as I said, we were at Fuji Speedway before now, here at Long Beach here today. Next week, we go back across the sea and down to Phillip Island in Australia before the final 3 rounds of the championship. We head back to Europe. It's Spa-Francorchamps, Silverstone, and then the Nürburgring. And well, speaking of this and the championship, what a championship it has been so far in your pro standings. Ross McFarlane for Pure Sims Esports is leading his teammate Alex Davidson by just 40 points after getting a win last time out at Fuji. Alex Gall from Maradna Satellite E-Stars is in 3rd place, but he's 136 points behind the leader. He needs to start making a run for the championship. Jack Sedgwick 180 off of Ross, with James Armstrong, the Brabham Esports driver new to the series this season, in 5th place. Mark Fletcher with Michael Avdoka, Jacob Machuski, who has missed a couple of rounds but is back here this week, Tom Dadswell and Adam Watson round out your top 10. In Pro-Am, this is incredibly close in the Pro-Am Championship. It's Mark Hutchinson who leads this one for Evo SR by just 2 points over Paul Webster for the Full Tilt V Motorsport outfit in his Audi R8. Jensen Adriansen's had a good season so far in Pro-Am. He's for the Indy Autosport Red team in 3rd place, just 20 points off the leader. 2 points behind him is Andy Archer of Century Sim Esports, with his teammate Ethan Critchley on 31 points behind the leader. 1 point behind him is Chris van der Ness for Evo SR. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Michael Gray. We've got Simna Horder and Sam Ways to round out the top 10. That's 70 points covering the top 8 in that Pro-Am standings. In your AM standings, it is Jesse Payne Wilkins. Change of team for him. Full Tilt Sim Sports now for him. He's leading that championship by just 18 points over Jack Osborne for the Century Sim Racing outfit. Adam Hedgecock is in 3rd place for Altitude Esports Blue, with Martin de Jong in 4th place. 5th for Paddy Volkner ahead of of good grief, words, Paul. Paul Crawford with Lars Van Rijn, James Whitehouse, Ed May, and Sarah Raab rounding out the top 10 of your AM standings. And then the enduro standings. Of course, we had an endurance race last time out. It is Ross McFarlane who leads that one. He's got a comfortable margin of 32 points over Ethan Critchley, with Jesse Payne-Wilkins third place in the enduro standings. Just one endurance race remains in that championship. Then your team standings. It is Pure Sims Esports. Well, they've got a comfortable lead of 430 points over the Maradna Satellite E-Stars team. 33 points behind them is Altitude Esports, who are in third place. Evo SR, they're your top Pro-Am team, fourth place overall, ahead of Full Tilt V Motorsport. Century Sim Esports, sixth place overall, second in Pro-Am, with DCW Racing in third place in Pro-Am. The rest of your teams on screen right there: Brabham Esports, Full Tilt Sim Sports, and Indie Autosport Red. So, Will, two 40-minute races. As I say, a reverse grid for the second of those two races, which will be decided here on the broadcast. What are some of the challenges that these drivers are going to face here tonight?
Well, it's with a track temperature of 44 degrees Celsius, it's always going to be really a challenge to keep those tyre surface temperatures down. Hugely important with the tyre model and the minimum pressures that you have to run in GT3 cars, and whoever manages to keep those tyres in the best working window possible will certainly be the fastest on race.
Yeah, we're just getting ourselves set then for the grid here in this opening race of the World GT Championship, and it is on pole position in his Ferrari, Jack Sedgwick, who takes that pole with Alex Davidson alongside him. Then it's Adam Watson and Tom Brown in row number 2. Great result for Tom, row number 2 for a Pro-Am. Row 3 is Ross McFarlane, your championship leader, and James Armstrong. Row number 4 then for Michael Evdoka and Phil Samways, with Jacob Machursky and Michael Gray on row number 5. Row 6 for Andy Scheel and Chris Van Den Ness. 7th row of the grid for Mark Fletcher and Matthias Drozda, with Ethan Critchley and Paul Webster on row number 8. Row 9 for Ashley Finch and Kevin Kittleman. 10th row of the grid for Pete Harrod and Yanis Albert, with Mike Horder and Mark Hutchinson on the 11th row of the grid. 12th row is Andy Archer and Jack Osborne. Row 13 then for Martin de Jong and Ed May, with Jesse Payne-Wilkins and Adam Hedgecock on row number 14. 15th row of the grid is Jim Whitehouse and Jeroen Kaiser. Row number 16 then for Paddy Faulkner and Tim Perry, with Jensen Adriansons and Paul Crawford on the next row of the grid. Brendan Stacey and Brian Sohn then with Andy Gilmore, Lars Van Rijn, Ben Gregory and Michael Blake, Lee Berridge and Jared Caroni on row number 21. Row 22 for Tom Dadswell, Richard Simner, Matt Woodhouse and Timothy van der Broek. Well, new name to the series. He's in 46th place. But we're getting set for this one then, Will. How do you see this one panning out?
I see it being pretty close. I mean, the pole margin from Jack Sedgwick is absolutely amazing. That was a 3.5 pole position against drivers with the caliber of Alex Davidson. And I think it's going to be an interesting race, though, because I don't feel like people are going to get away. It depends really on tyre wear and tyre preservation, like we've already talked about. If people can keep the tyres alive really well, so if Jack can keep that tyre alive from his Porsche Esports Super Cup pedigree and experience, then I'm sure he could pull away, but I see it being close all the way to the end through this 40-minute race.
I do think we've got to look out for Jacob Machursky as well. He's been focused on Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup qualifiers, but we're getting set for the World GT Championship. The grid is lined up and we're going to get underway then for 40 minutes of action here. The first of 2 races tonight in the World GT Championship. Down Shoreline Drive for the first time in towards turn number 1. Can they all get themselves through there? Hopefully there's no incidents happen to go through into the fountain section of the track. So far, so good. Nice and clean start, which is what we want to see here on this track. And then through, out of turn number 5, tricky corner, off camber, there's a car runs wide. I don't think it quite found the wall, but it will be compromised down towards turn number 6. There's a 2.73, that was Michael Gray. some would say he fades to grey. Not necessarily, but he is staying there, and I think he did clip the wall slightly because his rear wing is just taking a slight ding.
Yeah, extremely hectic there on the first lap. Everyone trying to make up places as quickly as possible. It's a bit easier when cars are closer together. As we see, I think that's James Armstrong trying to come through on I think Pro-Am leader, I believe. Round the outside, up the inside for the hairpin. Move done nicely. Also to mention, oh no! Oh, that's such a shame. Oh, and be careful on the rejoin. That's such a shame to see, and it's so easy to happen with how tight the streets are around here, Paul.
Oh, he's Austin Powers-ing this one, as there's more contact happening on the exit of the hairpin there. I believe it was Michael Evdoka that made contact with Tom. Tom Brown, he was up there in 5th place. He's dropped all the way down the field. Where is he on my timing sheet? I don't see him at all. He's definitely on track though, but yeah, he's dropped way down the order there. He's down in 32nd is where he is. Oh, Ed May, that was robust then between him and the car behind. So Ed is currently embroiled in a hard-fought battle there with Martin de Jong right behind him. In front of him is Jack Osborne, the AM Championship driver. He's not the best placed AM driver out there though. That's Kevin Kittleman up in 17th place. As they go through the left-hander at turns 6 and 7 onto Pine Avenue. Drop downhill into the right-hander then onto East Side Drive. Down this long straight. This is a good overtaking opportunity for people, isn't it? But you have to get the run off of turn number 8, don't you?
Yeah, it's still vital to be as close as possible into here. You don't get a massive run with how close everyone is because you're always checking up a little bit as we look back to the lead battle. Don't think there's going to be a move here. But yeah, you still have to be really close and sometimes send it really, really long on the brakes and get the latest on the brakes as possible. There's a little bit of room at the exit of that corner at the end of the straight, but not much. So it's always a hard pass to pull.
Yeah, it's certainly not an easy track to make overtakes at, and that's going to really be something that we know for the second race, especially if we get a big reverse grid for race number 2. That could have a real effect for those drivers out there. But the drivers at the front, they're trying to get themselves into a rhythm, and I tell you what, Jack Sedgwick, Alex Davidson, and Adam Watson. Now, Watson is somebody who does well around here. He is somebody who loves this track, and that Audi is really suiting his driving around here. But you got to say, Sedgwick and Davidson, they've got some tremendous pace at the front, so Adam is doing a sterling job there in 3rd place.
Oh, absolutely. You know, do not the quality of these drivers here today at the front of the field with Sedgwick, Davidson, even McFarlane behind, Armstrong, Massachusetts. It's a really, really high-class field, and Adam is keeping a really, really good pace up with these, 7,000 iRating plus drivers.
I think there was a bit of a half a track blockage then at turn number 8, and I think it was Adam Hedgecock who was involved in that one. Sorted themselves out though eventually. Here we go, here's a look at this. So there is the Ferrari, gets tagged by your own Kaiser in the Team Mad car, and then it's a case of pick your line and sort yourselves out. Oh, your own reversing into another Altitude Esports car. That's not ideal, but everybody able to carry on. And yeah, that was certainly suboptimal, is what me and Peter would say on the broadcast. And that certainly was the case. Now, worth pointing out, Ross McFarlane has got himself up into 4th place. He's up with James Armstrong in 5th. So he's really tried to move forward in this race, but he's got that little bit of a gap between him and Adam Watson in 3rd place. Ross, I think with how the championship is going, he needs to score well and minimise the points lost to Alex Davidson in this one.
Yeah, I mean, he's lapping currently about 0.2 of a second off the leader's pace. So, I mean, at this current stage in time, we obviously don't know what's happening with tyres and fuel strategy, for example, with there being pit stops in this race. he may have some more pace available to him, especially after the pit stops, maybe saving a bit more fuel to try and make a certain lap target of his. But damage limitation here is something that he might have in his mind, because it looks like Davidson and Sedgwick have a really high amount of pace, as well with Watson, because he's still staying there today. So you've got to be sensible in a championship like this. It's only a 40-point lead that he has, and making sure that he doesn't get, too caught up on just pushing too hard, because it's so easy to push that little bit too hard around here and make that one vital mistake that puts you in the wall and gives you suspension damage, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Or catch a curb wrong and send yourself into a wall that way. It's really intriguing that actually I'm looking at my track map. They're catching up to some back markers already, are the leaders. So obviously the field spread is quite large around here, excuse me, after the early going. And it's going to be Mark Woodhouse that they catch up to in that Team Mad Mercedes. You see, with its striking yellow nose. I may be biased, but I think that's the best looking car on the grid. Oh, mistake there from Jack Sedgwick through turn number 1. He got it wide, almost touched the tyre barrier there, but Alex Davidson, nowhere to go, cannot take advantage of that, and does stay where he is. As we go along, we're carrying on through here, and we've got, I'm looking on my track map, we've got the incident happening down at turn number 1 as well. There's a number of cars showing these yellow flags out there, one of which is Mike Horder. So something's happened. You can see them trying to sort themselves out. Oh, they've got to be patient, they've got to wait. That's unfortunate for them. That's thrown them all the way down. And Jacob Machersky, I think, was involved in that one, because he's all the way down. He's in the pit lane. This race is done. In fact, he's left the server. He's done to this first race.
Yeah, just looking back on it, it was actually inflicted by himself. Went into the corner, lost it at the rear. I think we're watching the incident that caused the track blockage. But actually, it was Matusik that started it. And you just blindsided. Obviously, you get a yellow flag, but if you're not careful and you just take the speed in like you normally would, and see some other cars having a few spins.
That was Horder losing it. That was a separate incident with Mike Horder. So we had the incident there where they all checked up and just had nowhere to go. And that's the problem around that corner. Here we go. We'll have a look. And it's the Evo SR car. A little bit late onto the brakes.
Oh, that's a big crash.
That is a big one. And I tell you what, I believe that's car number 33, Mark Hutchinson. That is one of your Pro-Am Championship contenders. Oh, as Horder gets turned around. And well, can cars get around there? Because it's a bit of a track blockage. It is a car park normally, is this part of the track. And well, they've all got to be patient and sort themselves out there, but they managed to do it.
Credit where credit's due in many senses. The rejoins so far today have been rather sensible, but it's always going to be really hard around here with how easy it is to cause a track blockage like we just saw. It's one of those things, though. It does happen, but it's just something you have to remain calm and not act in the moment, which is really easy to do when you're fighting for positions. Right, well, let's calm down a bit, hopefully, and get ourselves into a bit of a rhythm here, because it is your race leaders at the moment. Jack Sedgwick ahead of Alex Davidson with Adam Watson in third place. Ross McFarlane, you've just seen the background of that shot with James Armstrong coming along behind him in fifth place, and there's a little bit of a gap back to Michael Evdoka. Phil Samways is he top Pro-Am in this race. He's having a really good outing here so far. Sixth place overall, doing a sterling job as the catch up to some of that back marker traffic could get out the way. I will say, whenever the leaders have come to back markers, it's been really well behaved by those back markers. Michael Gray is in 8th place as his second place Pro-Am driver. And it's Andy Scheel and Chris Van Der Ness. Your top Am, it's worth pointing out, Kevin Kittleman in 11th place. He's gained 7 places so far in this race. Fantastic drive so far from Kisselman. I mean, it's one of those tracks, like we're saying with Watson at the front, Kisselman in 11th. the driver makes a really large difference here, and if you're confident around Long Beach, the amount of time you can gain just by really pushing the car is immense. Same goes for the Nordschleifer as well. Whenever you're there, if you're never pushing to 100%, you just end up being so far off, and it really shows the individual performance today, at least in this first race. You know, you can see who's standing out.
As we carry on, Kevin Kittleman has got Pete Harrod right behind him with him. Harrod's not had the best of seasons, I think it's safe to say, but Harrod is out there doing well in that BMW. And we've got battles further down in your field as well. I mean, this my timing sheet, it shows red boxes around the cars that are all within sort of a second of each other. Here's Yannis Albert right behind Ashley Finch right now, so it's 3M team and Brabham Esports. I mean, me and Peter have been waxing lyrical about Brabham Esports being involved here.
Oh no!
Oh, and it's the Century Sim racing car. That's Jim Whitehouse, the man who runs Century Sim Racing. Is collected Albert, and Albert has nowhere to go except the wall.
That's it. It's so unlucky, but it's one of those things when you've got lap cars coming round. Would have to see a replay to really determine any sort of fault, but it's just with it being so tight round here. You know, you see the Brabham Esports car come around the outside. To be honest, just looks like he cuts in a little bit too early, expects the car not to be there anymore after the braking, and doesn't allow sufficient room. Obviously, you really have to get as close to the inside and the outside when you want to carry as much speed with how tight it is around here, but in situations like that, you do have to give a little bit of room, especially when you're lapping lap cars.
Yeah, it is up to the faster car. Jim's still there, by the way. He's definitely Austin Powers that one. But you know, it is up to the faster car to safely make that move. But at the same point, it's the car that's been lapped in this series to help facilitate that overtake as well. So the series does have a blue flag rule. Whereas some of the series, they just have it as an advisory flag for that one. But now, this is going to be intriguing, because your race leaders are catching up to two drivers who are fighting it out for position right now. So that's car 57 of Jensen Adrianson's. Actually, no, they're not fighting for position, because Brendan Stacey is behind Adrianson's by a lap already. So you can see there's the flash of the headlights from Jensen. I think that's more of a case of, hey, come on, Brendan, hurry up, because we've got leaders coming up behind us now.
Yeah, and also, you know, trying to enforce the blue flag rule, which is at play. Something to note, at least from strategy point of view, it's very apparent to me that Davidson is saving fuel and clutching. Now, to briefly explain it for people that don't know, the reason why you clutch when fuel saving in iRacing in GT3s, for example, isn't to save more fuel, it's to carry more speed. So when you lift and coast, obviously the engine restrictions from the engine, the drivetrain losses will slow you down. If you clutch in, you have less drivetrain losses, meaning you lose less time for coasting, meaning that you can effectively lose less time, brake later, and it's just a bit better for overall time loss.
Here's Adam Watson. He's been each and every week been giving us his point of view. Leans down, he's leaning forward to try and get as much speed as possible. It doesn't work like that, Adam. There's a little flash of the brake lights from Brendan Stacey, just to let him know that, hey, I'm gonna back out of this one to let you pass. So that is a good way of doing that. You just flash the quick tap of the brakes, let the car behind know, hey, I'm slowing up first. But there's Watson. I mean, he's had to do it hard this season. He had that injured elbow that he had earlier on in the season. He's won 2 races as well, though, so he knows what it takes to win here in this championship, in these races. Just not had the consistency.
And sometimes that's something that, like you say, it's the development. You know, he's around drivers that, according to iRacing's system of skill rating, are much better than him on terms of the skill rating, at least. And like you say, when you're all racing against high-level competition, all you do is learn, and you figure out new things, how to drive that little bit faster, and what these guys do just to get that small little edge. A bit like what Davidson's doing right now, you know, sitting there, really patient, saving a bit of fuel, aiming for the pit stop, and the different things that Sedgwick will do as well in order to manipulate the race in his favour. And it's all the learning process of how you become a better driver inside this platform.
Well, we've got 3 cars onto pit road then. Ed May, Brian Sohn and Michael Blake, they're all choosing to take their pit stop now. You're going to be looking at around about 9-10 seconds for the pit stop. Obviously, the longer that you can go on this stint, on this first stint of the race, then the shorter your fuel stop will need to be. There's Phil Samways, by the way, your Pro-Am leader, 7th place overall in this race. And you can see those Pro-Am standings. You can see Samways, he's down there in 10th place at the moment. You know, coming into this week of the championship, he was 181 points behind the leader, Mark Hutchinson. Now, we saw Mark Hutchinson collecting drivers. Mike Hordrick was it? He collected into turn 1. Oh, that's a bit tight on the pit exit. It's one of the tricky parts of this circuit is the pit exit. Samways is scoring some really, really good points. We've got a change at the front, by the way.
Slow down for Sedgwick.
It is Alex Davidson who's leading now ahead of Adam Watson. Jack Sedgwick with issues. Must have cut across the inside of turn number 5 a bit too much. There's a curve there you can cut, but it's so fine. If you take it too much, it gets you a slowdown penalty, doesn't it?
Yeah, so originally when this track came out, there was no slowdown whatsoever. When they introduced the slowdown, it wasn't very, it's not massively strict, but it is so important for these drivers to run that line, as it makes the corner so much shallower, meaning you can carry a lot more speed. And you can see, just crossing over, I believe it's half the car over the theoretical inside there, and you're done, and you get a 1 to 2 second slowdown. Luckily for Sedgwick, it might be a little bit of a blessing in disguise though. If he can catch back up to these drivers, it forces either Davidson to manage his pace and fuel save himself while he's out in the lead, or go flat out and try and break the gap to Sedgwick. Now, if Sedgwick can catch up and save fuel, he can then get a bit of that deficit back that Davidson's managed to build up over these first 20 minutes.
We saw last time out as well that Jack Sedgwick in that Fuji Speedway race, okay, it was one of the hour and 45-minute races. It was strategy that lost him the win there. Ross McFarlane getting the win on strategy. Sedgwick had the pace. He absolutely did, but it was just that last pit stop. It really panned out nicely for Ross McFarlane last week here in the World GT Championship. This week, though, can Alex Davidson do that? Can he take an overall win here? Anyone new to the series, by the way, looking at our timing tower on the left-hand side, if you're wondering what the different numbered colours are, well, I'll explain that to you. The green numbers, for the car numbers, that's your pro drivers. Orange numbers, that's your Pro-Am drivers. And then the blue numbers, that's your Am drivers. So you can see our top Pro-Am is Phil Samways in 7th. Your top Am, Kevin Kittleman in 11th. This leading trio has been intriguing, just how they're playing that long game, and they've been pulling away consistently from Ross McFarlane.
Yeah, it seems like either Ross has got a fuel target or just doesn't quite have the pace of these leading drivers. It could also be down to tyre wear, for example. You know, some setups, if you build them, obviously. Same car for Davidson and McFarlane, so I'd assume they'd run the same setup. But considering the 1-2 in the championship, maybe they're hiding a few little things from each other. But in terms of, if we see, no, not in the fountain. Is he gone grass cutting?
He's in the flowers. He's in the flowers, is Andy. He's obviously a bit of a horticultural expert and decided to check out the flowers that we've got there. And he can't get himself free of the barrier.
I think he's stuck.
He's stuck. He's wedged. And he's taken the tour back to the pit lane.
That's a shame.
And I think he was helped there. I do think that he was helped into that position. In that one, but yeah, sorry, we're going back to your point.
Yeah, so in terms of No, I'm even forgetting my point. But yeah, in terms of the two drivers in pure teams, you just expect they're on the same setup. But if they're not, obviously fighting for the championship, then it could just be a case of Davidson managing the tyres or having a setup that slightly manages the tyres a little bit better for the pace. Could be a simple pace deficit between the two drivers, for example. But Davidson's fully pushing now, and he's really trying to make sure that this gap, this 1.1 second roughly gap, is to break the toe. It is broken as quickly as possible to just give himself kind of a clear advantage going into the pit stop phase.
Now, James Armstrong for Brabham Esports, we've been impressed with him so far this season. In 5th place overall, right behind your 3-time champion Ross McFarlane, looking to get a 4-peat here. There's nobody in this history of the series that's ever done 3 championships in a row until Ross did it last season. He's going for a 4th in a row championship wise, so he'll be looking for a decent haul of points. James Armstrong, he's won a race in this championship, so he knows what it takes to win races in this series. He's looking really, really keen behind Ross. It's BMW versus Mercedes. So far, it's the Mercedes just leading it, but I think James is doing the right thing, just sticking in his wheel tracks.
Yeah, like I said, another one of the fuel-saving things. It is there's something that people don't that underestimate who come into iRacing and maybe don't quite think about the pit stops the same way that some of these top guys at the front will be thinking. When you try and get a 10th, as we see, I think that's is that a Pro-Am leader onto the pit road? So he's obviously coming in for his regular stop. It looks like he's got his teammate behind as well. But like I was saying, you can fight so hard to get 1/10 on the track every lap, and you may build up a second over the course of a stint through just slightly better driving, but you can make up so much time in the pit lane. Entry speed, so making sure that your braking point's perfect into the pit lane. Speed through the pit lane, you can actually go a tiny bit faster than the speed limit is allowed by not using your own pit limiter. Pulling away from the box, dropping the clutches correctly, all of this can gain you upwards of 3 seconds if it's executed perfectly. And when you're thinking about a race where you could be won by tenths of a second, that's a huge margin.
So yeah, that was Michael Gray and also Phil Samways onto pit road for their pit stop. Samways 8.4 seconds in the box, his teammate Gray 9.6, so 1.2 seconds the difference in pit stop times between them. But to go on to your point, Michael Gray was only 1 second cone to cone behind his teammate in terms of pace, so it shows that you can make up that little bit of time coming into and out of pit road. So we still carry on watching Alex Davidson at the front of your field. This is the World GT Championship, brought to you by 3M here on RaceSpotTV. Paul Smith and Will Chadwick in the commentary box here, bringing you all the action. 2 40-minute races, 2 feature round races here. That sounded like just a little bit of a scrape of the wall on the inside of turn number 8, but that doesn't matter. Alex Davidson could carry on, but Adam Watson doing a sterling job, and I think that this track suits that Audi, especially around this section where it gets a bit tighter, shorter wheelbase.
Yeah, often the Lamborghini and the Audi tend to go very well around this track. Of course, if you don't know, Lamborghini and Audi both being the same parent company, the cars are very similar as well. They run the same engine, basically the same chassis with a different body shell over the top. So they both perform pretty similar to one another, and they're so good around Long Beach just because of the sharp changes of direction that is required. Mercedes have been very good for the past season and this season in World GT, but when it comes to a track like this, often the Lambo and Audi often have a little bit of an advantage on pace.
As you would imagine, the Porsche as well would do relatively well around here, and that could explain why you've got Kittleman doing so well in his Porsche, the AM driver. Ashler Finch and Andy Archer now the latest 2 onto pit road. So we've not seen a big surge onto pit road so far. It's been very much 1 or 2 or 3 onto pit road at a time. I think once we get towards the final 10 minutes of the race, that's when you'll see that last group of cars all head onto pit road at the same time.
Well, famously, in some of these 40-minute races, especially with inside the normal iRacing calendar, people have been known to do the entirety of Long Beach 40-minute race on the starting fuel. It's very, very, very hard to do, and I can assure you that no one in this front pack has saved that much fuel, because it's like 0.5 of a litre a lap, I think, or maybe even more than that. But it is one of the races where you tend to go a little bit further into the race. You know, some of the races this season you may have seen pit stops at the 20-minute mark, 18-minute mark, but here at Long Beach it gets a lot closer towards the end of the race.
I will tell you, by the way, we have had one driver serve a drive-through penalty. That's Tom Dadswell. So 20 instant points before a drive-through penalty here in these races tonight. So Dadswell, I mean, where is he? He's down in 35th right now. So he's having a bit of a nightmare out there. He'll be hoping for a big reverse grid in this race, will Tom, to try and get himself a good result. But we are into that final quarter of an hour of this first race. There's Yannis Albert. Oh, that'll hurt him. That'll really hurt Yannis there, getting lapped by the rest of the field. Slots in behind Jack Sedgwick. Of course, getting involved in that little bit of a kerfuffle with Jim Whitehouse. To go into the hairpin once again, and it's one line through there. You can make moves, as here's what's happened to Mark Woodhouse. He's had an eventful season so far, and the back end just loops on him, and he says, do you know what, I'll take the tour back to the pits.
Well, maybe not a terrible idea, because I know, I mean, me and Connery were always keeping our fingers crossed on the touring car nights. We want a full reverse grid, and I've not seen it yet while I've been commentating on one of these World Series, but tonight I'm thinking the wheel might bless us with a full reverse grid, especially at Long Beach. How much carnage would that be?
Well, we'll have to press that special button that Arjuna set up in this wheel. Oh, I didn't mean that. Come on. There isn't a special button. Paddy Faulkner, 4th place in AM. He is currently 13th overall behind Phil Samways. Phil Samways has made his pit stop as they go around the hairpin once again. So if I'm Paddy Faulkner, I just stick behind Phil, try and use him for a bit of draft, save a little bit of fuel as Jack Osborne now onto pit road. But there's Patrick Faulkner on screen. Again, enough one of the drivers who give us a little bit of a view as to their driving.
Ooh, a bit of a motion sim, I think.
No, I think that's just the vibrations from the force feedback.
I was thinking maybe a little bit like
a
butt kicker or something. Maybe I'm not so sure, but yeah, you might be right. If it's attached to the sim, that's probably where the vibrations are coming from.
But you can see the concentration. He's barely blinking, is he? He's a deep breath there, Paddy. You've got a lot more of these corners to go through here. But you can see the concentration that this track takes. Mentally, it's exhausting as this track.
Oh, it's one of these tracks. It's like I compared it to Nordschleife earlier as well, and I do really love the place. But it's one of the tracks that requires 100% concentration at all times, almost. You know, you get a few little breaks in the straights, but apart from that, it's so concentrating. You know, compared to like somewhere like Silverstone, where it's still really hard to get the ultimate pace, but you're not quite up against it of dying straight away. We see Benjamin Gregory up the inside there, defending into turn number 9. Into the last section of the lap, and another one in the Porsche, and that's Drozda as well making the position into the final corner. I think turn 12, right?
Yeah, Matthias Drozda into the hairpin. It's turn 11. It's 11 turns isn't it, around here. For the Satellite Racing team. It's worth pointing out as well, Ben Gregory, obviously giving us his Sunday name with Benjamin, but yeah, Ben Gregory for the Three Spires Motorsport team. Changed car. He was the last driver to drive the McLaren in this championship, but now he's switched over to the Porsche, carrying some damage to the front of his car, so he's obviously either met a wall or another car, and he's carrying that damage through. But Gregory has yet to pit, whereas Drozda behind has pitted, so you can almost say it's a fight, but it's not really, because Gregory's artificially further up the field.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. Gregory has been, he does the touring car series as well, and it's a shame to see the McLaren go. Often famed for its death wiggle, as some people in the community would call it, for the way it tends to wiggle under braking. But it's a shame to see that car go, and I hope iRacing update it to the newer car soon.
Retirements from the race: Mike Horder, Jacob Machursky, Jensen Adriansen, Andy Scheel, Jeroen Kaiser. Paul Webster, I could tell you, is a number of laps down in 44th. So remember, that's the man who's second place in Pro-Am, and well, I think he's just trying to do laps to try and get himself the best possible position for race number 2. Of course, you only qualify for a reverse grid position if you're 1 lap down. So with him being a number of laps down, he'll be just trying to get as many places at the back of the grid for him there. But it's been a real trial by fire for your Pro-Am Championship drivers. I mean, of course, we had Matt Hutchinson getting involved in that incident with Mike Horder earlier on. Paul Webster's obviously had issues out there. He was 10 minutes in the pit box, so getting some significant damage fixed to his car. There's some big issues that's happened out there to your Pro-Am Championship rivals.
Well, it kind of epitomises what the Pro-Am Championship has been this season. I mean, it's so close that it swings constantly in the championship, as we see the Pro-Am leader as of the time on track. Kittelman also in, who's led the AM class for the majority of this race so far, doing a superb job. But yeah, with it just swinging backwards and forwards and it being so close between so many drivers, it just makes it that more gripping, I think.
Certainly does. And it gives some others an opportunity as well. Don't forget as well, everybody, that there are 2 drop rounds as your leaders are onto pit road. They have decided that this is the time to make their pit stop with 8.5 minutes remaining in this race. Alex Davidson, Adam Watson, Jack Sedgwick, all onto pit road, as is Ross McFarlane and James Armstrong. I do imagine that Michael Evdoka will be heading onto pit road as well, as they get their mandated pit stop. Of course, you have to take a service here. It's fuel only, but you have to do it. It's part of the regulations. There goes Davidson. There goes Watson. Sedgwick is still sat there. He's getting away now. Davidson with a lightning pit stop then. That's 6.5 seconds compared to 7.5 for Watson. It's a little bit of a gap there. Can they slot into some free air? DCW racing car gonna come in, right in front of Watson. That is not what Adam wanted.
That is exactly what Adam didn't want, like you say, and that's what I was talking about. Davidson saving the fuel, and there's contact. And that's and Sedgwick collected as well.
That's a big incident, and Watson, I can tell you now for sure.
No. Is that Armstrong as well involved?
That's McFarlane. That's that McFarlane. It is your championship leader. It goes from bad to worst as this race. Oh my goodness, and we've still got cars flying around the corner. The track is clear, you can make it round, but you've got to back out and get clear of those cars that are stranded. Now they get going, but Adam Watson is going to cop a penalty for that, I can guarantee you with that one. That was impatience, that was pure impatience from Adam Watson there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that just comes from pure frustration as well, because obviously he was already lost time to Davidson in the pit stop phase. He then got lapped by the Pro-Am car, and it's just that bit of frustration, and like I said, it's about not making those rash decisions in those moments, which ends up probably costing him and probably giving him a penalty towards the end of this race. Not to talk about the fact that McFarlane was involved in that, Sedgwick, Armstrong, all involved with big damage now as well.
Well, the question is, as Evdoka has come out of the pits in front of his teammate Ross McFarlane, I mean, Alex Davidson, he is going to be loving that. He's got a nice little bit of a gap, 1.4 seconds between himself and Adam Watson. Sedgwick, he's going to have damage to the front of his car, as is Ross McFarlane. There was nowhere for those guys to go. They come round the corner, all of a sudden they met with a car stopped in the track, but you've got to pay attention to those yellow flags, especially around here.
It's the hardest track of the season, no doubt, for this type of situation. You've got a car turned on the outside, blocking half the track. There's hardly enough room to get by as it is, and if you're coming around the corner at full speed and you've not kind of yielded a little bit for those yellow flags, you're going to end up in that decision. And sometimes it's a guessing game as well, because we saw McFarlane gambled on the outside and just it was the completely wrong place to go. It was evident in watching back on my screens that he gambled to go to the outside, and it was not the right place to go. It now gives Davison a healthy lead. Still has to be careful around the back markers. Sedgwick looks to be out of it for now. Should still be able to hold on to third, but it's going to be a case of just keeping the nose clean for Davison now towards the end of the race.
Ethan Critchley has got himself a drive-through penalty, the second driver of this race to get a drive-through penalty. And to be honest, Critchley, he's actually towed it back to the pit, so I think his race is done here. A little bit heartbreak for Ethan. He's had such a good season. It's not been perfect for all the way through the season, but he's certainly had a good run at the start of the season. As we look back, there's a Tom Brown. Oh, careful, not to quarter panel. And staying behind is Brown, but he's got Andy Archer in front. This is a fight for 15th and 16th positions right now, and the Indy Autosport red driver certainly pushing on in that Porsche. 4 minutes remaining in this race, so the question is, will Tom Brown make his way past here? Adam Watson has gained just a little bit of time this lap, but not enough really at the front, but yeah, this is pretty close between Andy Archer and Tom Brown.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of the Porsche around here, and I'm sure we'll see this, is the speed that it comes off the hairpins. The traction. I'm sure Peter would tell you all about the Porsches. Me and Peter absolutely love Porsches. But aside of that, engine right over the rear axle, giving you a lot of traction. Often struggles a little bit for understeer depending on the fuel loads, but the traction out of these corners, as we see here now onto the main straight, makes it so much easier to make a pass going on to the start-finish straightaway.
Well, it's not much of a straight, really, is it? Using the slipstream there, down into the braking zone. And do you know what? Andy Archer said, have it, Tom. It's all right. I'll be happy with 16th place here. Now, worth pointing out, anybody new to this championship, you've got to remember, for those drivers who are in Pro-Am or Am, you're not scoring individual championship points here. It's whatever position you finish in, those are the points that you take into your particular championship. So just because Kevin Kittleman is in first place in Am won't give him full points for winning a race. It'll give him 12th place in points, but what it will do is it give him a good chunk of points over Jack Osborne and Martin de Jong, who are in 17th and 18th place. So that just gives you an idea as to what these drivers are doing. So every position counts here in this series.
And I think that's a really rewarding way of doing it. It really encourages people to have these standout rounds like we've seen Kittleman have, like we've seen Stanways have. We've seen, obviously, same class, but Watson's had a really, really good round as well. And just by making it that much more important, every position mattering, I think it adds a lot of tension. It makes every place you have to fight for. It's not a case of, oh, he's a pro, he's an Am, he'll let me buy, or he's a pro, I'll let him buy and just let him carry on with his race.
And a few drivers who come into the series who are brand new, who maybe are the higher I-rating drivers. We have seen it in the past where those drivers do have that little bit of an attitude of, well, you're in a lower class, get out of my way. And it doesn't work like that in this series. What does work in this series is time. We've got 1 minute and 10 seconds remaining in this race. Alex Davidson, where is he out on track? He's just coming through turn 4 right now. So I think we'll get enough a lap after this one. Thijs Drozda, in the meantime, in his BMW. Huge car. Huge front grille as well on it. Thankfully, we're on the correct camera view where we're not getting to see that grill. As they go down Shoreline Drive in towards turn number 1, he's got Chris van der Ness in front of him, and this is a Pro-Am battle right now. You got Samways, then you got van der Ness. I mean, Samways is a bit up the road, but van der Ness there, and Matthias Drozda through the fountain. They go, and the boosted Virage car just jumping out the way there. Good to see. I'll carry on around turn number 5. Short, sharp, straight. Now, Alex Davidson coming to the line. He's going to be starting his final lap of the race. White flag in the air. So he's just got another 3 kilometres to go in this race. He's got Adam Watson not too far behind, but I don't think Watson is close enough here, Will.
Yeah, I think, well, you never know at Long Beach, though, with mistakes that are so easy to make when you just start to lose concentration that little bit. But I do think Davidson's got it in the bag here. Very experienced driver, and he's looked really, really good today. But, you know, full credit to Adam Watson for keeping it so close, as we see him get a little bit of a drift on through that corner there. But, yeah, Watson's performed excellently, Davidson as well, and lucky for Sedgwick, because he led this race and put on a fantastic pole time down.
You can see he's actually dropped back quite a bit from this lead pair. As I say, Watson second place, but I do think he's going to be copping a penalty post-event for that contact with that DCW racing car. As they go down into turn number 9, through the long sweeping left-hander here at 10, and then onto the brakes, round the corner, into the final corner they go. Alex Davidson, this is going to be his 3rd win of the season. He'll be delighted with this, across the line to take victory in Pro and overall in this race. The Pure Sims Esports driver, tremendous job to win this round of the championship. There's 2 Pure Sims cars. Evdoka has lost the position to McFarlane. Maybe a little bit of team orders there between the 2 of them. So the rest come along now. Where's Phil Samways? Because Phil is your leading Pro-Am here in the Audi. They're going to be coming through the final corner. In fact, there he is, flashing the headlights. He's your Pro-Am winner here today. And now look back a bit further. 12th place overall, Kevin Kittleman for that Indy Autosport red car. Tremendous drive from him in that Porsche. And he will see that checkered flag. Barney waving that flag with great delight across the line. And Kevin Kittleman, he'll be happy with that. Contact in the final corner. There's a car in the wall. It's one of the Century Sim Racing cars. Martin de Jong's involved in all of that. That's dropped him down. That's allowed Yanis Albert to get past. And Jack Osborne, your 3rd place. So that was 2 AM drivers, de Jong and Osborne, getting together there through the final hairpin.
Yeah, he was just trying to get a run, and then they all kind of got into each other. It's a nature of the hairpin, really. All slowing up a little bit and all just trying to get those things, the last final positions. But yeah, Kittleman wins in AM, Samways in Pro-Am, and Davison in Pro. Very good race to start off the night.
Well, don't go anywhere, because we have got another race to come here, everybody. And first of all, we need to decide which position is going to be giving us pole position in this race. The wheel slows down. It's gone past the full, so it won't be a full one, and it's going to be quite a small one actually here. It's going to be number 22, so 22nd place will give you who is on pole position as we go through your results here from race number 1 of the evening. Alex Davidson for Pure Sims Esports takes the win by 2.4 seconds over Adam Watson's Altitude Esports car. 3rd place for Jack Sedgwick and his Inex Racing Ferrari, battered and bruised towards the end of that race. James Armstrong for Brabham Esports, 4th place for him ahead of Ross McFarlane, another one who had some damage to his car ahead of his teammate Michael Evdoka. Phil Samways for Full Tilt V Motorsport is your top Pro-Am in this race, finishing a good 11 seconds ahead of Chris van der Ness in the Evo SR car. Matthias Drozda for Satellite Racing, 3rd place in Pro-Am, 9th overall, with Mark Fletcher in 10th place. 11th for Pete Harrod ahead of Kevin Kittleman, who's your top AM driver for Indy Autosport Red. Ashley Finch and Tom Brown, Andy Archer, Yannis Albert take us down to 16th. Martin de Jong for Full Tilt Sim Sport finishes in 17th place ahead of Jared Caroni in 18th place. 19th, third place in AM for Century Sim Racing is Jack Osborne, with Tim Perry, the Boosted Garage car, in 20th place. Patrick Faulkner for DCW Racing is the last driver on the lead lap in 21st. 22nd and pole position for the second race of the evening here, Ben Gregory for Three Spires Motorsport. He'll be delighted with that. Timothy van der Broek from the back of the grid all the way up to 23rd ahead of Ed May, Jesse Payne Wilkins, Paul Crawford, Mark Hutchinson, Michael Blake, Brian Sohn and Lee Berridge. Then Tom Dadswell ahead of Andy Gilmore. Then drivers 2 laps down or did not finish. You've got Adam Hedgecock, Jim Whitehouse, Brendan Stacey, Lars Van Rijn, Michael Gray, Matt Woodhouse, Richard Simner, Ethan Critchley, and then your final few, Paul Webster. He did actually finish the race, but 9 laps down. Jeroen Kaiser, Andy Shield, Jensen Adriansons, Mike Horder, and Jacob Machuski, well, didn't even finish a couple of laps in this race. So that is the end of that first race of the evening here. We've got another race to come, another 40-minute race to come for you here in the World GT Championship, brought to you by 3M. Paul Smith, Will Chadwick here in the commentary booth, and, Will, there are plenty of thrills and spills in that one. More spills than thrills, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things that you're always going to get a little bit of Long Beach, especially with the small incidents that happen. You know, a relatively small incident, like a little bit of small contact, you know, that wouldn't really cause much at a Silverstone or a Spa, here is massive, and it causes track blockages, as we saw, and it catches out the best of drivers. We saw Sedgwick getting catched out, Armstrong, McFarlane. We saw Massachusetts causing one at the start of the race, and it's just one of those things that it's a characteristic to racing Long Beach in many ways. But many drivers still manage to stay either on the lead lap, 21 of them, or, you know, minus one lap down, 32, which was obviously what you said was available for the reverse grid. So 22 out of 32 for the eligible for the reverse grid. It's not a bad reverse grid, and it's certainly going to make it very, very hard for those starting, or who won the race starting high up, to make their way through.
And this is going to be the challenge when you look at it. Alex Davidson, Adam Watson, Jack Sedgwick, Armstrong, McFarlane, Evdoka, they've all now got to move forward from the low 20s and high teens to get themselves forward. Now, because there are pit stops, you can use that to your advantage to a degree. If, however, there's a safety car in this second race, which is something that we've actually not had around Long Beach in the World GT Championship, hard to believe that, but it's true. But if you do end up with a safety car, you lose in about a good 8 minutes or so, aren't you, from your race time?
Oh, and like we were saying, you know, remember when the leaders were coming into pit lane, it was like 8 minutes. So I think potentially if we were to have a safety car here, you could maybe make it the entire distance of the race. Well, it depends. Obviously, you don't lose no fuel.
You could, but you are mandated to make a pit stop.
That's a shame. I'd like to have that involved, but anyway.
It's not like I've been mentioning it all broadcast.
I don't listen anyway. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry, nobody listens to me, so it's fine.
But yeah, like you say, it's gonna be close, and you are losing a lot of time. It's a balancing act, really, because pit early, you get clear air, potentially, not always the case, but you theoretically get clear air, or easier people to pass that take less time, potentially. You know, it always plays out differently sometimes, but you've got a heavier car, and you never really have that light car till the end of the race. Whereas when you don't do that, and you constantly go down on the fuel loads, your car is actually just naturally a little bit quicker. So if some people gamble, like Watson, let's say if Davidson pits early, Watson carries on, you could definitely see a big time difference there, depending on how their races go.
See, the problem with this track that I see about that, as we're getting ourselves into the second race session, so do stick with us. The problem that I have with pitting early in a race like this, around a track like this especially, is it's putting you behind even more traffic. You would need to find yourself a big gap out there to be able to make that early pit stop work, because if you don't, if you end up mixed in the traffic, well, you're just slowing yourself down even more. With something like this, you have to either be able to make your way through as quickly as possible to get that clean air to run away from the rest of your competitors, or you get stuck in where you are that might be a little bit quicker than if you take an early pit stop and get stuck further behind other AMs and Pro-Ams, for example.
Yeah, it's definitely a juggling act, and like you say, at this track, it's so much harder to make those positions on your AM drivers, your Pro-Am drivers, if you are a pro, let's say you're Davidson, trying to make up the time via an early pit stop. So it is definitely a risky card to play, but I wouldn't count it out. I think someone's going to go for it. You know, always someone likes to throw a red herring in there.
I've noticed here in the YouTube chat, by the way, Esmeralda saying that congratulations to Kevin Kittleman. I will say 12th place overall for an AM. We always like to point out how the AMs and Pro-Ams get on. That's a really good performance in that Indy Autosport red Porsche.
Fantastic performance. I mean, and what a great track to do it at. You know, a track usually, you know, determining driver skill highly. You know, people always talk about, you know, if you can drive around Long Beach for that long without, you know, putting it in the wall, messing it up for yourself, it's a really good achievement, and it shows with the position that Kittleman was able to get in this first race. And again, starting, I think 12th or not that, like 10th for the feature race. So could have another really good race.
Yeah, and it's races like this can really help you out in a Pro-Am championship. And also, it's worth pointing out as well, Phil Samways for Full Tilt V Motorsport. Tremendous performance from him to finish 7th overall in this race against the field that we've got here today is not an easy achievement, and he's done himself well and done himself proud.
Yeah, all three of those Pro-Ams, really. You know, we had Pro-Ams finishing 7th, 8th, and 9th, I believe. Obviously, you know, Samways also showed his prowess because he had 10 seconds on his fellow competitors in that class, which is a large margin. Obviously, it's a 40 minutes race, but that's like, what, I've got a few seconds every 10 minutes, you know, like 3 seconds every 10 minutes, which is quite a large pace deficit that Samways had over his compatriots. And yeah, I shout out to all three of them because they all did a really, really good job by keeping it out of the walls and stuff.
I mean, I want to make a point here. In the Pro-Am, going into this round of the Pro-Am Championship, you had Mark Hutchinson, you had Paul Webster, you had Jensen Adriansons with top 3, you had Ethan Critchley in 5th place. All 4 of those drivers had a major issue in that first race. It's really going to be a case of getting what you can out of the second race. Yes, you've got drop scores, but you don't want to have to rely on drop scores for your championship, do you?
You always want to be in control of your championship destiny, in a sense, if you want to put it like that. You know, the more that you're in control, the more you can manipulate it, and then maybe towards the end of the seasons, you can rely on those drop scores to save you a little bit if you need it. It's not a good place to be getting, okay, we're only just past halfway in the season. So if you're starting to use your big drop scores now and you're thinking to the end of the championship, I need to do well in these rounds, sometimes it's just not in your control. And that's where it's going to be a little bit hard for some of the drivers who use those drop scores up early. And results today that you see could sway the championship massively.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got about 4 minutes. You can just see it in the top corner of your screen there. About 3 minutes 50 remaining in the warm-up session for the drivers out there. Conditions out there, well, the track has cooled quite considerably because we're going in to late afternoon here. Just 24 degrees track temperature in Celsius. I don't know what that is in freedom units. I can't do the maths, but I can tell you that is going to suit these drivers a lot more. They'll be able to push a lot harder in the second race,
and a massive decrease in times as well. Increase in fuel burn, decrease in times, I should say. And it may make drivers push that little bit harder, but it is nicer on the tyres, so you tend to keep the tyres in a better working operating window. You know, 15 degrees down from the last session. That's a really big change, and also setups can change across those. You know, some setups can become a bit more oversteery, a bit more understeery, and you might see drivers making small adjustments in this first practice session.
Yeah, and they've only got 10 minutes to do that as well. So it's not a lot of time to prepare yourself for the second race of the evening. It's races like this where championships can be made or lost, and a reverse grid draw around a tight and twisty track like Long Beach can give somebody a really, really good kick forward in their championship fight. One driver that we've not mentioned at all during this break, Ben Gregory, starting on pole position. This is a tremendous opportunity in a Porsche that should suit this track.
Yeah, like you say, the Porsche got a lot of traction. It's going to really help you when defending, especially out that hairpin. You're going to get a good drive. You're going to get maybe a half a tenth on the car behind just through the fact that you're in a Porsche. And Gregory knows how to capitalize on these situations. We've seen him do it in the World Touring Car series, which is on later in the weeks, and he's fighting for a championship there as well. So I'm sure that he'll capitalise on this opportunity, and I'll see him getting a good result here today. Hopefully no commentators curse. I hope that doesn't exist.
It does exist. We all know that it exists, but there you go. So just one thing before we do end up going in this one. You speak of Porsche. I was fortunate enough, along with Connery, to experience what a Porsche is like at a fair rate of knots, and it certainly was impressive. I hear, Will, that somebody else in the commentary booth of RaceSpotTV is getting that opportunity as well.
Yeah, I'll be heading down to the Porsche Centre in Silverstone, which is a fantastic place, courtesy of Porsche Centre Chester. So I can't wait to go and do that. And I'm sure you enjoyed yourself. I can't wait. And love Porsches.
Yeah, but you get to drive the cars. I was just happy being a passenger.
You like being a passenger.
Yeah, well, I've got to have somebody drive me around. I can't be doing all the driving myself.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I'd love a chauffeur. That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? But yeah, I'm looking forward to like the skid pan and stuff. The kick plates and stuff, catching the car. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure you'll see some posts on my social media.
Absolutely. Check out Will's social media to keep up to date with that. But they'll look after you. Trust me, they will look after you down there at the Porsche Experience Centre at Silverstone. And it's a tremendous facility, and if you do happen to purchase a brand new Porsche, well, congratulations, could you sponsor me, please? Secondly, it's a great facility for you to learn how that car handles. So it's not sponsored by any means, just pointing out that it's a tremendous facility, and I'm very grateful that I got the opportunity, and we'll get that opportunity as well. But with that padding out of the way, we are getting ourselves set for the second race of the evening here. And well, this is going to be an intriguing round here, because with 22 cars reversed on the grid, we get to see what is going to happen. So let's have a look then at the grid very quickly. It's Ben Gregory, Patrick Faulkner with Tim Perry and Jack Osborne, Matt de Jong and Yannis Albert on row number 3. Row 4 for Andy Archer, Tom Brown with Ashley Finch and Kevin Kittleman, Pete Harrod and Mark Fletcher next. Matej Drozda with Chris van der Ness, Phil Samways and Nicola Doka ahead of Ross McFarlane and James Armstrong. Cedric and Watson with Alex Davidson, your race winner from race 1, starting in 21st. Timothy Van der Broek, Ed May and Jesse Payne-Wilkins. And Paul Crawford, Mark Hutchinson, Michael Blake, Brian Sohn, Lee Berridge and Tom Dadswell. With Andy Gilmore, Adam Hedgecock, Jim Whitehouse, Brendan Stacey, Lars van Ryan and Michael Gray. Woodhouse and Simner then with Critchley, Webster. That's a stacked row, is that one? Ethan Critchley, Paul Webster, Ron Kaiser and Andy Shield. And the last car on the grid is Jared Caroni. We are 3 cars less than what we were for the last race. And Will, I want you to give me a call very quickly. Who's going to get this one?
Gregory. I don't know why. I believe in him.
Well, you, Ben Gregory's family and himself are about the only people who would agree with you on that one. But I think we're going to have someone like a Mark Fletcher come through, or even an Ashley Finch come through and get a win. Or maybe Yannis Albert get his first win of the season. But we're getting set for the start of this second race of the evening then, as the cars try to get through the hairpin And they're all stacking up there, but the green flag will fly. We're underway once again for 40 more minutes of racing here in the World GT Championship. As they cross the line down through Shoreline Drive towards turn number 1. How will everybody get on? Will we need a safety car? We didn't in race number 1. We had a couple of close calls. Oh, 3 wide into 1. There's a spinner. Is that Michael F. Durker? I think it is. It's carrying on. Oh, it's 3-4 wide into the fountain section. We've got 2 cars in the wall. It's an absolute nightmare.
It's all kicked off here on lap 1 of the second race tonight. That was absolutely carnage into the fountain section. I think it was 3 wide at one point into the pole.
I think they nearly 4 wide as well. Matthias Drozda is stuck out there. He can't get going. And in fact, he's taken a tour back to the pits, as has Kevin Kittleman. After the first race, he'd done so well. He's taken a tour back to pit lane. He is done for today. Ethan Critchley starting from the pit lane. He decided to stay out of it, but the problem is he's nearly a lap down already as we're heading into the hairpin for the first time. It is Ben Gregory ahead of Tim Perry. Yannis Albert in 3rd place already, ahead of Jack Osborne, Paddy Faulkner, Tom Brown, Andy Archer and Mark de Jong. Mark Fletcher and Michael F. Durker the next 2. Jack Sedgwick up 4 places already into 14th place. James Armstrong, Alex Davidson right there with them. Ross McFarlane's lost a place at the start. Adam Watson is on pit road, so he obviously got involved in all that shenanigans. Brian Sun as well, he's on pit road for the start of this race. So a number of drivers who had a good first race finding themselves into trouble.
It's already important to note that Davison is ahead of McFarlane for the championship already. Obviously, I think McFarlane got himself caught up a little bit in that first lap carnage and's got a tiny bit of front end damage, nothing major, but it's already massive for the championship in this second race.
Drozda has retired his car. He is out of the session. That means he's out of the race already after not even 1 lap of action in this one. Down towards the core. That's a big move there from Brown. Down the inside of turn 9. And he threw it in front and just stuck it there. And the 91 of Jack Osborne, well, he had to back out of it because he had a face full of Porsche then.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. It's a massive concertina effect into that final corner here at Long Beach, and you go so slowly. It must be one of the slowest cars in motorsport, as we see Davidson right on the back of Armstrong, squeezed right up to the wall, down into turn 1. Can Davidson get the move done? Side by side, right turn 1, is that contact for Davidson. Armstrong into the wall. Does he recover? He loses the place to Ashley Finch, but I think his car's relatively okay, although he is sliding about a little bit, so maybe not.
Well, Armstrong, fortunately for him, at that point there is a tyre barrier, so you're not hitting that hard concrete wall, so you can get away with it a little bit more. But I think Alex Davidson might be feeling the wrath of the stewards after that one, potentially. Well, it was side by side into the corner, so you've both got to give each other room there. Once they throw it on to Seaside Drive, down this back straight, heading towards Firestone Turn. It's a quick right-hander. Well, it's relatively quick for a corner around here. Everything's 90 degrees pretty much around this track as they head on through to the hairpin once again. Change position as they go, but right now Matt Fletcher's onto pit road early. He must have damage or something up with his car. He's decided, yeah, he's got damage at the front. You could see it.
Yeah, quite a large amount of damage there to Mark Fletcher's car, like you say.
The problem is here we go. Here's what happened at turn 1 then. So, well, carnage is what happened. But yeah, we got 4 wide at one point.
Yeah, I believe it's Fletcher that actually caused that. And as you can see, massive stack up. That's where McFarlane loses out so much and gets the front little bit of front damage. We see a few cars that have had to return to pit lane. Gregory leads still. I think Yannis Albert, as you can see, just made the move up there into second place. looking really, really good at the start of this one, up from 6th place now into 2nd, chasing after Benjamin Gregory.
Yanis Albert, that was a tremendous move. Here we go. Here's a look from above. So we're going 3 wide into the turn number 1. There's a late lunge down the inside. Oh, it was contact from the Altitude Esports car. We then go 3-4 wide. There's more contact, and then Kevin Kittleman. That's where Kittleman gets involved, along with Drozda. And then, well, where do you go? Adam Watson getting stuck behind both cars.
So I'm pretty sure someone just took the high road.
The car stopped in the background of the shot there. That's 56. That's Tom Brown. Oh, Tom Brown. He's had such a good race 1, and he's now facing the wrong way on the exit of the hairpin. And that tells me one thing: he's had some assistance.
Yeah, it's often you'd expect him to be spun to the other side, gets into the
don't go too far
area.
Yeah, don't go too far the wrong way, or you will get yourself disqualified. Fortunately, able to carry on, but that's dropped him way down. What's happened here? So Brown
by himself into the final corner, you know, going to a speed of only 40 kilometers an hour. Yeah, you're completely right. And pushed up a bit. I guess he tries to oh dear.
That's not the best rejoin I've ever seen in the world. And the problem is he's right on the racing line there.
It's not the worst, it's not the best, but a lot of time lost there for Tom Brown. I'm sure he'd be really upset with whatever happened with the other BMW that managed to tag him around.
Michael Evdoka has just moved up ahead of Martin de Jong, who's actually racing for the Angry Sheep Simulations. I won't be saying the acronym to that, but so Evdoka has moved himself forward, and there he is. So across the line once again, as they go through. Looking at this, yeah, Phil Samways looking to have another good race. He's up into 8th already, down the inside. That's a late lunge in that Audi, and he's got it.
Beautiful move there from Samways, showing his prowess around this circuit over the other drivers. I mean, again, fantastic move, and that puts him still in 4th in Pro-Am, but gets him up to 7th, where he finished the last race, I believe. Yeah,
he did. He finished 7th place last time, so he's looking at a really, really good couple of races here as Phil. Up ahead of Martin de Jong. That was a late lunge, I must say. Alex Davidson trying to work his way forward, gets himself ahead of Jack Osborne. Osborne has got Armstrong with him for company as well. And here's Ross McFarlane. You can see damage to the front of the car from that lap 1 incident. Now, with this track, it doesn't affect you too much compared to some other tracks that we go to, like Fuji last week. We have that long straightaway. But here, because it's tight and twisty, the damage doesn't affect your top speed as much, but it will still have an effect though.
Oh yeah, it always matters a little bit at least. It's more suspension damage you're really looking out for, a little bit of steering damage, because precision is so important here that if you get a little bit of steering damage that just sends your head off a little bit, it can really impact your ability to run your pace and also keep it out of the walls at the same time. Something to note as well at the front, I think it's going to get close now between Albert and Gregory as we now cut to the picture. Gregory got a really good run at the final corner like we were talking about, but Albert definitely does seem to have the pace, especially in this mid-section lap. Of course, that BMW is so good around the higher speed corners here at Long Beach.
To come out of that right-hander down this back straight, and as you say, that launch that the Porsche gets, that initial launch, if anywhere, this track is the track where you're going to be feeling the least amount of deficit of top speed of that Porsche. You really got a great opportunity here, has Ben. Not been his season at all, he'll admit that it's not been his season. But Yanis Albert could be looking at his first race win in this championship. Of course, his teammate James Armstrong got a win earlier on this season, but Yanis is Michael Evdoka onto pit road. He's pitting early along with Ross McFarlane, so the two teammates deciding now is the time to make a pit stop. They're going early, Will. Is this going to pay out?
it all depends where they end up and how much time they can save. Do we get a fast repair in this series? That's something you have to tell me. Yes. So that's important for the likes of McFarlane. So if he can take that damage now of Doka as well, if he has any damage, that will also save you time. So if they've got that damage and they think that damage is probably going to offset the amount of fuel that they're now going to have to carry for the rest of the race, having a heavier car, then that is probably a deciding factor in why they've gone this early in the race.
And there is actually quite a bit of gap towards the rear of the field as well. It's not quite as spread out as race number 1, as De Jong and Davidson are switching positions on our timing tower on the left-hand side of the screen. Of course, if you do want to keep up to date with all the timing and scoring, RaceSpot.tv/timing. And you can keep up to date with everything, including pit stops. And pit stops are key here. So I can tell you that Evdoka took 8.7 seconds, McFarlane 7.7 seconds in the box. So that's the fuel that they've taken towards the end of the race. Andy Archer is the latest one onto pit road. Here's Yannis Albert looking for the race lead. Not getting past for the time being, though.
Gregory not phased there. Very, very well kept within his means. You know, he didn't defend unnecessarily. Kept very calm. Braked at his point. You know, didn't outbrake himself, and that helped him keep Albert behind for this time being. Although Albert is really, really close behind going into this section here.
Yeah, Albert, he's hounding Ben right now. We've seen Albert make a move into turn 8, so he can make the move into 8. He did that on Tim Perry a few laps ago. Come out of the right-hander. Down this back straight. Get up to 5th, possibly 6th gear. I think you're basically more in 5th gear than 6th down this back straight. So we are getting into that sunset period of the evening. Phil Samways, by the way, up into 4th place now. Tremendous drive so far for the Pro-Am driver, but it is a Pro-Am who's leading. Ben Gregory with Yannis Albert 2nd place. Tim Perry right there with them in the boosted Virage car. So it's the 3 Spires Motorsport car, which is one of the boosted outfits, in the lead of this race. And we've got a boosted car in 3rd place. It's a Brabham Esports sandwich right now.
Yeah, me and Connery were talking about the whole sandwich debate. I got it in the first time where I did World Touring Cars, and then he beat me to it at Silverstone International in the 2nd time. But enough talk about sandwiches. We're coming through turn number 5 here, the right-hander where, just a little bit of a slide there, but Albert looks so dominant. Turns 3, 4, and 5 is, and then into 6 is definitely Albert's best opportunity here. That's where he seems to really excel in that BMW against this Porsche. And if he's going to make a move, I think he's got to do it into 6.
That BMW just seems to have the stability over the bumps through that opening sector of the course, doesn't it? Compared to that Porsche, it just seems to just glide over those bumps and the off-camber corners. And right now, going round the penultimate corner, long sweeping corner across the pit entry, used to go off to the right there before the hairpin. They then went and changed it to after this hairpin, so the drivers have to negotiate that hairpin before they can then head onto pit road. Just gives it a little bit of extra length for the pit lane. This is a good opportunity for Albert. I don't think he's going to make a move here. I think he's happy just sitting behind. He must be happy with the speed of his car, as we've in fact lost Andy Shield from this race now. He's onto pit road, and in fact his race is done. He's out of the session.
Yeah, well, something to note here is Albert did look at first to be like trying to save a little bit of fuel. That's a mistake for Gregory. In the best section here for Albert to make a move into 6 to the outside. Brakes a little bit later, carries the speed. Can he keep it there? Gregory gets the run and he manages to cover it, does he? Yes, he does. Is Gregory going to go? Is Albert going to go for it anyway? He does. Oh, it's side-by-side contact. Oh.
Their big side-to-side, door-to-door contact between Gregory and Albert then. Albert does take the lead for Brabham Esports, but Tim Perry, another driver who has won a race at Daytona, he's now got an opportunity of a race win here. If you're Ben Gregory, you're thinking, well, come on, I need some space to be able to go down that back straight. But we've seen Albert make that move into 8 before. And I was wondering also how high up your voice could get you
I
went through that. It was close. It was really close.
We were getting close. Yeah. It was really, really close there. And it's a case of that tyre barrier on the outside of turn number 7 is really thick, obviously for safety reasons. But it means that when Gregory was right up against the tyre barrier, but as soon as it opens out, he actually did kind of have enough room to move across, as we see a replay here. Obviously, we're looking from Tim Perry's perspective, who managed to benefit really well from that, getting past his fellow Pro-Am driver. But you see, he gets to cover off Gregory, but then he doesn't continue to cover it, sticks it up the inside, and then, as you can see, has enough space. They get together, touch wheels, and that is what slows Gregory down so much and allows such a free pass for Tim and for Obo as well.
I'm wondering, Gregory must have thought that Albert was still alongside him between turn 7 and 8, because he was definitely in front. He could have covered that inside line off there. So obviously thinking about survival, somebody who's not thinking about survival, Alex Davidson on Jack Sedgwick. Now these two have been moving their way through the field. It's plus 14 places for Jack, 15, well, change it around, 16 places for Davidson, because he's got the inside, but Sedgwick has got the run out of the corner. It's Italy versus Germany for Grunt down this front straightaway, a shoreline drive in towards turn number 1. Sedgwick can pedal that Ferrari, there's no doubt about that, but he has got the inside line, he shuts it off. That is the position held for the time being, but Davidson is showing his intent. And I can tell you that out there, the 989, I believe that's Michael Avdoka, has had an incident out there. That was between turn 7 and 8.
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, it was really good, respectful racing. As we see this incident for Avdoka, gets caught out a little bit, and then I think that's the number... Fletcher, yeah, I thought it was the 111. And yeah, it's one of those ones that he gets caught out with the car ahead, brakes, and because they're all so close together, it then causes Fletcher to then also have a thing. I think Fletcher was waiting for Avdoka there.
Yeah,
which is rather nice of him, to be honest. And Mark, if anyone's ever spoke to Mark, they know how nice of a guy he is. As we resume the battle between Alex Davidson and Jack Sedgwick. Davidson around the outside again.
That's a lovely move.
Lovely
round
move.
The outside. Sedgwick is giving the space there. Cornering it. They're so close to each other. They're almost rubbing door panels between the two of them. Down the straight they go once again. We've still got 22.25 minutes of this race to go yet. This is absolutely sensational between these two. The more they fight over these positions, though, the more it allows people like Samways, Gregory, Perry, and Albert to move ahead. Still side by side into the final section. There's banging doors. My goodness, can they sort themselves out? Or are they going to stay side by side? Davidson just, and I mean just, ahead of Sedgwick there. Fantastic.
I was getting deja vu there going through that. I was like, I swear this happened last lap. But Davidson decided this time not to go for the cutback. Kept it on the outside. They both gave just about enough room. Slight bit of netco contact, but they both kept it together. They went into that fountain section. I thought, oh, it's going to be a crash, but they kept it side by side. Davidson just squeezes by into turn number 4.
Wow, that's big for Alex, because that's going to help him with the championship. Looking back to Ross McFarlane, by the way, your championship leader, 3-time champion. He's got a bit of clear air, I can see on the track map, so he's looking well so far. In fact, there he is on our screen. So let's have a look at his lap times. Jack Sedgwick pits. He's decided that now that he's had that incident, that changed position, he's pitting. But Ross McFarlane, I can tell you, lap time wise, last lap was an 18.4. Your race leader, Yannis Albert, did an 18.3. So he's matching the pace of the leaders right now as Ross.
Yeah, well, something to also look at as well is if you're watching our timing screens, you can see a little bit of damage on the back of McFarlane's car, and you would think, he would have got that repaired in the pit stops. It's not the same damage. You recall the incident we saw between Mark Fletcher and Avdoka. He got caught up in that, and I believe it may have been James Armstrong, the car behind, who punted him up the back and gave him a bit of diffuser damage, which will not be helping him one bit in these straight lines, and a little bit of downforce as well. But it's not massive. And 18-2 last time by compared to our Burrs 18-3. It's not a massive difference. But remember, he is running higher fuel loads.
Yep, he has pitted, as has James Armstrong, who's right behind him. Here's Gregory, by the way. He's not giving up on second place. Tim Perry is wanting to hold on to that, and Phil Samways is joining the party, as is Alex Davidson. In fact, forget that. Samways decides, I don't want a piece of that. We're at the halfway point of the race. I'll take my pit stop. He's headed on to pit road. I would imagine his teammate Michael Gray will be heading on to pit. Oh no, he's already pitted as Michael. We have lost a number of drivers from this race so far. Matthias Drozda, Adam Watson, Kevin Kittleman, Jeroen Kaiser, Brian Son, Tom Brown, who didn't end up continuing, Andy Scheel after getting stuck at the fountain. Ethan Critchley, he's out of this race as well. It's been a round to forget for Ethan. Mark Fletcher, he's on pit road. That is his day done as well in terms of any championship points for him. So this round could have some huge championship conversations right now.
Yeah, and I feel like that's every time that you're going to do a round in a season, it's going to ebb and flow, especially in championships like the Pro-Am where it's so close. And it's just a case of averaging that out the best you can to get the results that you need. Samways pitting was pretty smart, I think, because he actually was running faster than Aubert in the lead, showing his pace today. I mean, we saw it in the first race how fast he was against his competitors, and opting to take a little bit of an early pit stop as we see, I believe, one of the Pearson's cars, Davidson, into the pit. So again, thinking about how much time it might cost him to pass them.
Where is Ross McFarlane? He's just going through turn number 8 right now, is Ross, as Davidson pits. So that's going to be the crucial one now. Where does Ross come out behind Davidson? Because I do think that Davidson will come out of the pits ahead. 8.3 seconds for his pit stop for Davidson as they come down pit road. Here comes Ross McFarlane into the hairpin. Don't forget, Davidson does have the fastest lap of the race, and Armstrong getting really close. That's going to help Ross McFarlane with one of the cars getting out of his way. There's Davidson coming off of pit road. You've got to wait until right at the end there, where that blue line is, the blue cone. That's where you feed back onto the track, and he has come out quite clear. Actually, I must say, he has come out ahead of Ross McFarlane. Oh, who's that? It's Phil Samways! No, that's absolute disaster for the Full Tilt V Motorsport driver. He's been having a sensational round here today as Phil. He finds himself facing the wrong way. Whatever you do, don't hit the Tamiya sign, because I'm a big fan of their models. But Phil, right now, is trying to find himself a space. Fortunately for him, there is none.
Yeah, he's going to be absolutely kicking himself. He went deep into turn number 1, caught the tyre barrier. Sedgwick then sticks it up inside into the fountain and then turns him round. As we see here, like I say, into the barrier. Sedgwick thinks fast, goes to the inside, tags him, and in a matter of seconds, it's gone from a fantastic day to a rather poor second race.
Oh, he'll be kicking himself over that one, will Phil. He knows it's his mistake into turn 1 that started that off into the tyre barrier. And then, yeah, there was contact between him and Sedgwick, but that'll be a tricky one for any stewards' inquiries to look at. But we are back to live pictures then. The race for 5th and 6th place. Pete Harrod and Ashley Finch as they go down the back straight. Of course, Pete with Century Sim Racing doing, as I said, he's not had the best of seasons here this season, but he's having a good second race so far. He'll be hoping for some good points for his team. The team, though, importantly for him, are leading the Pro-Am Teams Championship, so they'll be delighted with that. Across the line they go once again. No pit stops from those guys at the front of the field this time around. We've got under 16 minutes remaining in this race. This is the World GT Championship, brought to you by 3M here on RaceSpotTV. Paul Smith and Will Chadwick on commentary. Delighted to have you all along here for some sensational racing in the second race. And it is currently the Brabham Esports driver of Yannis Albert who leads the race ahead of Tim Perry for Boosted Virage. Your pole sitter, Ben Gregory, for the Three Spires Motorsport, they're in third place. So it's a Pro-Am, second, third, and fourth, because Chris Van Der Ness for Evo SR in fourth place. Then we've got that race that we were looking at between Pete Harrod and Ashley Finch in fifth and sixth place. Your top am at the moment, although we are in the middle of a pit stop cycle, is Paddy Faulkner, seventh place for him in this race after starting up near the front of the field. Your next best am is Andy Gilmore down in 13th place. Well, as I'm right, not that far behind him in 14th place either. So some good racing, some good battles throughout the field. And we're looking at one of the Three Spires Motorsports cars right behind. That's one of the new team, the Angry Sheep Simulations. In fact, they head onto pit road and decide to take a pit stop for Timothy Vandenbroek.
Yeah, pit stop there for Vandenbroek. Coming in again a little bit early, but we're likely to see the next round of pit stops with inside the next, I'd say, 6 minutes roughly, as we see a Titanic battle. I'm not sure what corner this is into. Yeah, corner number 8. Yeah, like you say, just coming all towards the end of the lap. One of those, I think that's one of Stanway's teammates. I'm not sure. I'm getting lost here of where we are, but oh no! Ah, so easy to do.
Don't get the blockage here. Good luck. Good luck, everybody. Be patient. Well, who was involved in that? That was Michael Evdoka, who got stuck behind that jam. Oh, the DCW racing car trying to take advantage of the situation. As well, the Audi decides to head up to pit road, and well, that was all a bit of a mess. Paul Webster involved in that there, so Webster, again, not a good night. Here comes Ben Gregory from third place onto pit road. That was an aggressive pit entry, I must say.
Well, yeah, but that's what we were talking about, though. Minimising the time loss, nice aggressive in, braking relatively late into the pit box, and this is what I was going to suggest earlier. So between him and Tim now, they've obviously got pretty similar pace. If Gregory can execute this pit stop really well and just hit those laps really good as soon as he comes out the pit lane, he might be able to jump Tim, which is much easier than passing, believe you me, around this circuit. And it's going to be really interesting to see when Tim comes out to see, are they going to be fighting on exit?
We have had 2 drive-through penalties so far, Ed May and Martin de Jong. We've got a third one now. Mark Fletcher has got a drive-through penalty, so he, after that incident between him and Michael Evdoka, he's now got a drive-through penalty for accumulation of incident points. That 20 incident point limit, I mean, it's quite a loose limit, but it's still quite strict though, especially for a track like this where it's so easy to pick up instant points.
It can be, yeah. It's not necessarily the off tracks that you get around here at Long Beach. It's more the contacts that you can have with cars, because the iRacing system doesn't perfectly always judge, you know, who deserves the 4x for like fault of the contact. So little bumps in the hairpins, bumps at the start of the race can easily give you 4x. They accumulate quickly, and as you can see here, you know, it can then cause you to get a drive-through penalty. It's only like 5 4x's and you've got a penalty, which is much easier than it looks.
As we carry on with Albert then at the front of the field, lapped one of the Team Mad cars. That is Matt Woodhouse, who has been nothing short of spectacular with his crashes this season, but unfortunately that's not what you want from this team. Now, onto pit road is the 51 of Andy Gilmore. He was the second place AM in the field here in this race, getting his pit stop cycle done right now, getting the fuel, no tyres, away he goes, 8.8 seconds on the box. If you are someone like James Armstrong, you can't get past Ross McFarlane. Are you just happy sitting there now?
Oh, it depends what you're really looking for every race result here today. I mean, I think everyone in this field is going to want to get every place they can. Maybe at this moment in time, it's better to sit as they're trying to gain the time to the leaders in order to, when they stop, make up those positions without having to fight anymore. He's got to be careful of a car slotting in between them, either from, like you see, the 77 letting McFarlane pass here, which is not mandatory in any means, but it's a nice thing for him to do, and he lets Armstrong by as well. But if a car gets in between these two cars, it can open that gap up massively, and then it gives Armstrong no chance towards the end of the race. But Armstrong's got plenty of pace here, and I definitely think he will be able to make a move if he times it right.
Well, we've got 10.5 minutes remaining in this race here as we go across the line. Lee Berridge is the latest retirement. We've only got 33 cars left rotating around this venue. So we started with 43, we're down to 33. It's been a real race of attrition, has the second race. But right now, Ross McFarlane, look how close Armstrong gets. It's different cars, the different characteristics that those two cars have. The Mercedes AMG is a front engine car, long bonnet as well. That BMW, again, another front engine car. But it's the wheelbase, it's how the cars handle the bumps, it's how they deal with the braking, how good they get the power down out of corners. It's that fascinating rivalry between those two marques and two top drivers as well.
Some of the best drivers in this series of Armstrong and obviously the three-time in a row champion McFarlane. Very good across multiple cars as well. You know, Armstrong held the lap record earlier this year for the GT4 class in the at the Nordschleife. McFarlane obviously getting those 3 titles. He's quick in anything. You know, one of the quickest drivers to go and jump in and do these league series. You know, famous for kind of dominating leagues. Really, McFarlane. You know, what a class driver he really is. And like I said with Armstrong, you know, very good over multiple disciplines, ran third for a large majority of the 24 hours of the Nordschleife earlier this year in GT4.
Yeah, certainly we've got some talent on the grid, that is for sure here, as we're still waiting the final few pit stops. We have got 8 cars yet to get their pit stop out the way, and Yannis Albert has decided that now is the time, with 8.5 minutes remaining, your race leader onto pit road. We saw this in race number 1, that about 8.5 minutes was the time to get the pit stop done. Tim Perry, he's onto pit road. I expect to see everybody else down onto the pit lane to get their service done.
Yeah, well, it's like you say, yeah, everyone's coming in now. I think it's going to be, in case you've saved a little bit of fuel, you might just be able to go that one extra lap. But this is the pressure point now. Are we going to see the change in Pro-Am lead? You know, like we were talking about between Tim Perry and Ben Gregory. I don't think Albert's going to be challenged by anyone. Maybe Davidson, it looks like, maybe on the exit as we see him. Shot there is going to be really interesting down into turn 1.
Well, of course, remember the sweep that you get from the racing line in towards close to each other, and it's Davidson who takes the lead. My goodness, what a close run thing there between the two of them. Albert, though, he won't give this one up without a fight, you can guarantee that. But that's that pit stop cycle and that run into turn 1. The pit lane, you have to turn so late out of pit lane. You're forced to keep it out wide, and it's that sweep through turn number 1 that gave Davidson the lead there.
And we almost saw the identical thing happen in the Pro-Am class. Gregory and Tim Perry came out pretty much the same distance, but Perry managed just to keep it by a couple tenths of a second, and then that's going to be another race that's going to be really interesting towards the end there.
So that's your pit stop cycles done. So it is Alex Davidson who leads this race ahead of Yannis Albert, and Ross McFarlane is stopped out on track. What on earth has happened to Ross? He's back up and running now, but he's dropped a few places. That's dropped him down to 7th place. Was there contact between him and Armstrong? No, is the answer. There's a clear gap, and he's just missed his braking. Oh, he's missed his braking, and that's taken him down. Fortunately, there's a service road there that he could go down, but my goodness, he was on his own. That was his own mistake. It's rare to see that from Ross.
And this is where championships change. Only 40 points separated McFarlane and Davison going into this round. Davison is on to win both races here tonight with 6 minutes to go. McFarlane's made the mistake. He's now got Chris Van der Nies behind him, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think he'll still hold on to that, but you know, there's a couple of positions, crucial points in the championship potentially. You know, championships are won by 1 point at a time. That mistake could be immensely costly.
It's the pressure of this championship. This is round number 8 of the season. It's a 12-week season. Next week, of course, we head on down under to Phillip Island for 3 sprint races. That's a round that can really throw some changes up in the championship as well, before we end up with that European round of races at the end of the season, ending at the Nürburgring on the Grand Prix layout. But Yannis Olber, he's not able to keep up with Alex Davidson here. Davidson has pulled clear here, 1.2 seconds. He's got a little bit of lap traffic though he's got to worry about. That's Ed May, I believe, who's out there. Oh, we've got a car stopped. Can't see which car is stopped. This car's trying to avoid
Finch,
it.
I think. Finch, yeah.
Finch, yeah. Taken a tour back to the pit lane. So what's happened here? Loses it. He just loses it.
And then I think that's the sound of blowing up the engine as well. I'm not sure. I think that happened in pit lane maybe, but yeah. Oh, and we see another one. The altitude. What has he got stuck there on the outside? I think he has actually by that camera.
Adam Hedgecock. It's Adam Hedgecock.
Oh no!
Oh, careful
the rejoin.
Oh no, we're fine. We're fine.
I mean, that's not really his fault, to be honest, with where he was placed, but it's really hard to slow it down for those cars coming through such a tight hairpin. And yeah, that's really unlucky because he only just got caught there. And yeah, it's what we've been seeing all night, really, at Long Beach. It's just so tight. Some of these calls and side-by-sides, and that's unfortunately what's just happened to Headshot there.
As a carry-on, Finch has retired his car, so we're down to 32 cars on the track. As we're looking at one of the Evo SR cars, I believe that's Chris Van Der Ness. It is, behind Ross McFarlane. Van Der Ness, he's got Pete Harris not that far behind either, so the Evo SR team trying to get themselves some good points once again. Mark Hutchinson, a much better second race here. He's up to 12th with Simner right behind him as well. So Richard Simner having a good second race of the evening here. As we go through the fountain section once again. Your top Pro-Am, Tim Perry. Well, he is certainly doing a good job in 5th place, ahead of Ben Gregory. Those two have been together pretty much all race of those two in 5th and 6th places. Van Der Ness that we're looking at right now, the 3rd place Pro-Am. Your top Am driver, I'm looking down the order, I believe it's actually Jack Osborne. It is. Jack Osborne in 18th place overall. Is just 1 place ahead of Jesse Payne Wilkins, the championship leader in AM, with Paul Crawford not that far behind in 20th place either. So the AMs are all together, not really gaining many points over each other there with those positions. But this is a night where if you suit this track and if you get a little bit of luck, you can get yourself some really good points.
And that's absolutely correct, just looking towards where Gregory and Perry are. I mean, you said they've kept their noses clean majority of the race, fought between themselves, and they're currently in 5th and 6th position here, which is huge points for the championship. You know, we saw some of the leaders in AM earlier on do 7th, 8th and 9th. This is even better for points. So, and then that's what flips these championships apart. It's obviously got the fortune of the reverse grid, but that's how the series works, and you've got to capitalise on that.
Capitalising on your opportunities is what a number of drivers have done in this series over the years to get themselves championships. There you see the positions gained and lost. Alex Davidson, well, I can tell you now, that's in class, by the way, is those positions gained and lost. Overall, Alex Davidson has gained 20 places in this race. Yannis Olber 4, Jack Sedgwick up to 3rd place with 16, and James Armstrong 14 places gained. Jared Carone, it must be said, plus 32 positions after starting stone dead last. The Miranda Satellite E-Stars driver has done an absolutely sensational job this second race.
32 places around Long Beach. Are you kidding me? That's incredible work there from the Miranda E-Stars. I mean, that's... Mate, what a performance that is, and maybe even a couple more positions. You never know.
Adam Hedgecock has had a drive-through penalty here, as we should be on to the final lap of the race. I think it'll be a bit tight, but things go from bad to worse for Adam after that contact at the hairpin. He is now down there. Davidson is coming through into turn number 8. with 36 seconds remaining. It's going to be tight. It's going to be close at the hairpin to see who win, if we get another lap or not. There may be one or two drivers who don't want that extra lap. They will have calculated their fuel to a certain amount. But here we go, into the hairpin. 15 seconds remaining. What is Barney, the flagman, going to be waving? Is it going to be white or is it going to be black and white? We'll have to come across the line right now. It's a white flag. We get that extra lap. One more lap in this race here for Alex Davidson, who's got a 3.5 second lead over Yannis Olber in second place. Jack Sedgwick in third is another 3 seconds back from Yannis there. Still the battle for fifth place goes on between Tim Perry and Ben Gregory. To be honest with you, I think Ben will be content with that sixth place.
Yeah, I mean, it's great points, and it's not, not too much points losing to Tim. Obviously, you'd be a bit frustrated with what happened to losing the position to Tim earlier in the race, but it's still an amazing result. I mean, 5th and 6th for those AMs. I mean, obviously, McFarlane is lurking behind. You can see him just after his mistake. Probably not got enough time. It'd be an amazing drive to manage to get past Gregory here, but 5th and 6th in Pro-Am, sorry, I should say. Fantastic result.
Well, at the front, Alex Davidson is looking for a perfect evening here. Okay, he didn't have pole position in the first race, but he's going to take away 2 race victories for Pure Sims Esports. Across the line he goes. He sees the checkered flag, and that is another race win. That's going to be his 4th win of the season. Alex Davidson for Pure Sims Esports. Yannis Olber second place ahead of Jack Sedgwick. Look back, Tim Perry for Pro-Am is going to see that checkered flag, and he is going to be victorious in Pro-Am. Ben Gregory's weaving. He's happy with that place. And then your top Am, we go back to Jack Osborne in that, what position is that? That is 18th place for Jack. The Century Sim Esports driver comes around that final corner, gets on the power once again, does the 91, sees the checkered flag, and he will take victory in Am. Tom Dadswell actually headed onto pit road on that last lap. Don't say that he ended up with a drive-through penalty at the end. No, he didn't, but he was onto pit road, was Tom. So something's happened to Tom there on that last lap. But he makes it. But, well, what an evening of racing we've had here, Will. That's been certainly quite chaotic, but also some big results for drivers out there.
I mean, the standout performers, I mean, Davidson, obviously, 2 race wins, 22 reverse grid. I know, not the biggest reverse grid, but around Long Beach, it was such a hard track to pass. Avoided the carnage, drove really well, and that's huge for him in the championship, especially with Ross McFarlane finishing in 7th and I think maybe 4th or 5th in that first race. So huge points in the championship there. Some standout Pro-Am performers and Am performances as well.
Well, let's get you your results then up on screen to give you how things stand at the end of that race, as some drivers enjoy and celebrate themselves towards the end of the lap there. But it is Alex Davidson once again for Pure Sims Esports, race winner. Second place though, Yannis Olber, really good result for the Brabham Esports driver, but 4.3 seconds back. He won't be happy with that gap. Jack Sedgwick for Inex Racing. It's an evening of what could have been for Jack, if I'm honest. But he finishes on the podium ahead of James Armstrong. Tim Perry for Boosted Virage. That's a great result for the Boosted team. That's another Pro-Am win for Tim this season. Ben Gregory, the 3 Spires Motorsports driver, right behind him. 2nd in Pro-Am, 6th overall, ahead of Ross McFarlane. Again, another evening of what could have been for Ross here today. 7th place. I think that'll be one to write off here. 3rd place in Pro-Am is the Evo SR driver of Chris Van Der Ness, ahead of Pete Harrod and Andy Archer. Jared Carone biggest mover in that second race, up to 11th place. That's 32 places gained ahead of Mark Hutchinson, Richard Simner, Michael Gray, Timothy van der Broek, again, another driver who's new to the series, getting himself 15th place. Jack Osborne, your winner in AM, should I say, for Century Sim Racing, ahead, only just ahead, of Jesse Payne Wilkins. Paul Crawford for DCW Racing finishes 3rd place in AM, 18th place overall ahead of Matt Woodhouse, 19th place. Good result for him this season, that from Mark, ahead of Phil Samways. Oh, that's a question of what could have been for Phil. Lars van Rijn in 21st ahead of Michael Blake. Jim Whitehouse gets across the line in 23rd ahead of Andy Gilmore. Patrick Voltner in 25th ahead of Michael Evdoka. Tom Dadswell, Paul Webster, he'll be disappointed with tonight with that one. 28th place ahead of Ed May and Martin de Jong. Adam Hedgecock then ahead of Brendan Stacey with Ashley Finch. These drivers all not finishing. Finch, Berridge, Fletcher, Critchley, Shield, Brown, Kaiser and Son. And then the final 3 of Watson, Kittleman and Drozda all did not finish the race. Well, what can we say from today's racing? Chaos, panic, disorder, but a couple of brilliant drives from Alex Davidson.
Yeah, like you say, and that's huge for his championship. 40 points going into this round. There was the deficit between him and McFarlane. I'm not sure on the situation, but I'm sure that's closed down significantly, if not changed around. Some other standout performances. We saw some really good Pro-Am drives today. Gregory, Parry, and Samways, is it? I forget the names. We also saw Kittleman in the first race with a great performance, not only in qualifying, but also in the race as well. And it's important to say about those because so many people did so many good performances today.
Absolutely. Well, one person started on pole position in that second race. It's Ben Gregory. Will, take it away with Ben Gregory for an interview.
Well, Ben, I'm going to take the blame slightly for you losing the place to Tim Parry because I did tip you for the win. It was brave. It was really brave. But you did a really good job off the start, defended really well from Aubert. Obviously, had that little bit of contact which cost you to Parry. You went for the early pit stop, trying to jump him. It came out really close on the exit with a few laps to go. Tell me a little bit from your perspective how you found the race and the conditions and, the challenge of Long Beach here today.
Considering this is actually one of my favourite tracks, I adore the street circuits. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I think race 1 I started very far back and I got caught up in a bit of a concertina and car park at the start, but the pole on race 2 let me actually race the car how I wanted, and it was everyone gave good space, a little bit of door banging, but we expect it here. It was honestly probably one of the best races I've had in a long time.
Yeah, well, we see you out in the touring car series. I think we should have touring cars around here. I think that'd be fantastic. But in the Porsche, how do you find it? Obviously, we see you in the touring car series. We see you in this Porsche. Which do you prefer? That's the real question.
Oh, don't ask me that. I can't start picking between the children.
Well, I think personally I like the Porsche, but I'd prefer the Cup version, to be honest. But that's me being very, very biased. You say this is one of your favourite tracks. We talk about how street circuits are a lot about the driver. What were the main challenges, especially going between the track conditions in the first race and the second race with the rather large temperature difference?
I think it was coming into the second race, it's just going, okay, I should have the confidence on the tyres, it should be a bit colder. I think it's always that thing with a street circuit, you just need to be confident in the car to grip and do what you want it to do without clipping a wall, because it's an inches between a really good race, and back in the pits for a repair. So, just getting the confidence and finding that grip difference between the 2 sessions in the 10 minutes we had was a bit spicy, but it seemed to go at least well for me, at least. I can definitely say that.
Yeah, so thank you for coming in for an interview. We always appreciate it when people come in. Congratulations on your 6th place. Good luck in the touring cars later this week if you are competing. And thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's been great to talk to you guys. Cheers.
There we go then. Ben Gregory joining us for an interview then. And, I mean, Will, it's your first time on the World GT Championship side of things for commentary. What have you been your takeaways from tonight?
Fantastic racing. In many cases, really good respect shown between the drivers. A little bit of carnage, but we always love a little bit of carnage, a little bit of spice. You know, it makes things more interesting for us in the commentary booth. And some standout performances of some really, really good drivers coming up through the ranks. You know, Gregory, Samways, you know, all those drivers, Kittle, their names, I can't remember them. I'm really bad. But some really standout performances tonight. And I thoroughly enjoyed being alongside you again, Paul. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, next week then we have 3 sprint races around Phillip Island in Australia. That is a round that could change a few things in the championship. You will not want to miss that. October the 10th here on RaceSpotTV. Same place, same time, same channel. But I'm afraid that is all that we've got time for here tonight, here on the World GT Championship from 3M. From myself, Paul Smith, from Will Chadwick and Hugo Luis behind the scenes. It was a tremendous round and a double win for Alex Davidson. Until next week, it's goodbye.